I watched season 2 of Hilda. It's animated, so let's talk about it. What's Hilda? It's a Netflix original animated show for children, rated TV 7 or something like that here in the U.S. And it's about a little girl who goes on adventures because she knows a lot about monsters and things like that. And it's just a lot of fun. If you missed out on season 1 of the show, good news. It's right there on Netflix, and season 2 just came out a little while ago, sometime last week, and I felt like talking about it without a script. And it's going to be real short because I don't think I have all that much to say about it that's too original. I'm mostly going to tell you why I like it and why I think it's good, and maybe you should check it out right now in particular. First up, is season 2 of Hilda better than season 1? Well, why are you asking me? That's not a very good question, is it? I don't think I look like Tier Guy 44649, although, my gosh, that guy, he's been putting out some great content lately, hasn't he? I love Let's Rank all the potatoes that I found in my cupboard. First up, I wanted to talk about the tone of season 2, and I guess it's basically the same tone that it had in season 1 as well, which is the stakes are relatively low, or at least it definitely feels that way. You never feel like, the stress of things are going really wrong and I have to worry about stuff. It's not really the vibe that it's putting out. Overall, Hilda reminds me a lot of just fun chapter books that you might have read in 3rd or 4th grade. Stuff like Jigsaw Jones, that was a big one for me, or not so much Harry Potter, the more epic, crazy, lore-heavy stuff, even though Hilda has a decent amount of lore, and it actually works a lot better than some other things that I'll mention. At the same time, it also feels weirdly, it feels more grounded than chapter book adventure kind of stuff. That definitely comes through more so in season 2, I think, because one of the most interesting continuing narrative elements for me was the relationship between Hilda and her mom is pretty consistently strained by the fact that Hilda's constantly sneaking out to go on adventures. And as someone watching the show, where that's the premise, it never feels strange at first. You're like, she's the main character. She's going to go on adventures with her friends. Crazy things will happen, and at the end of the day, she'll be safe and she'll come home and go on another adventure tomorrow. And here, they actually bring up the idea that, it's kind of insane. It's kind of insane that she would just constantly lie and put herself and potentially others in danger to go on these wacky adventures. And I think that's a really neat angle to take. It potentially could have made the adventuring stuff less fun or feel weird in some way or distract from the fun of those adventures, but it really doesn't. It just feels like, this is completely reasonable for these characters. You got Hilda, who's way too excited to do dangerous stuff, and you have her mom, who's just trying to be a parent, who's just trying to be an adult and not let her run completely wild 100% of the time. So I wanted to talk about the music, because both the score music, the original music for the show, and the soundtrack stuff, it's all really good. Any composers attached get a bunch of credit, and whoever the music supervisor is on the show, A plus 2 A's? No, that sounds like something else. But it's great. Even I don't know, they chose some subtle instrumental stuff that wasn't specifically composed for the show, but it feels like it still fits, and it feels just atmospheric and fun. There's definitely a general indie pop vibe for a lot of this music. Also, a lot of the score music seems to make use of plenty of analog synthesizers, which, apart from being very trendy right now, it also just fits because they naturally have a much warmer sound than digital stuff. I think they really do contribute quite a bit to the tone all this music does. It's one of my favorite elements of the show. Still, talking about story stuff, I guess overall, I mentioned stakes earlier. Season 2 definitely feels like it has slightly larger or slightly higher stakes just in general. Even when they bring back story elements or lore elements from season 1, the situations feel more serious here in a way, or not more serious, but they have more potential to be serious for the world of the show. And I think that's really a good place to take it. And it also wasn't overblown. It's not like they went absolutely nuts with the stakes and now it feels like they couldn't couldn't possibly top it. No, they just developed the stuff that was already there. They introduced plenty of new elements that I thought worked really well, and nothing felt inconsistent. They've really been trying to bring like witches and magic into the mix more and more, and with that, there's always a danger of making it feel like every other fantasy thing that's ever had magic in it, but it really doesn't. It's its own weird little take on all of that stuff. Although I thought it was funny that both this show and Summer Camp Island just happen to have uptight, book-smart characters who happen to be learning magic. It still works fine. Oh, and by the way, while we're talking a little bit about world building and stuff, just a note that I thought it was funny how, especially in season 2 here, they introduce a couple of scenarios that are like eternal curses or eternal conflicts, things that just go on, and without spoiling those, I thought that stuff was more interesting and better suited to, like, if you heard me talk about Blood of Zeus, the Greek mythology show that doesn't do the Greek mythology thing very well. It doesn't create new interesting scenarios that feel like they fit into that mythos. This show does. Hilda, a show for small children, did a better job introducing its own like iconic imagery and ideas that felt consistent with the tone that were actually compelling. And I thought that was just funny because Blood of Zeus just sucks. Moving on. One of the very last things that I wanted to talk about was just the show's visuals and the animation. I don't know, the animation style itself, like, the frame rate is different. You know, anything with facial animations, everything is very smooth, but character movement is choppy on purpose, I'm sure. It doesn't really bother me. I think, again, they've been so strong with the style as a show overall that I'm not going out of my way to nitpick and say, you know what, in this way, I wish it were more similar to every other animated show I've seen. I just don't feel that way about it. It's fine for me. It works a-okay. But overall, and probably the most notable thing from the visual standpoint is the color palette that they choose to use in this goddamn show, because wow. It's hard for me to think of another show, at least an animated show, I mean, but it's so pleasant, and that seems to be the job of the visuals most of the time. There are one or two unsettling environments, but even those, it still looks generally non-threatening, like it still fits the tone of the show, which is, there's conflict, but don't worry too much about it. But in general, when they really want you to feel safe and comfy, and you're just looking at some of the normal settings that we see in almost every episode, Trollberg or these lovely nature landscapes outside of the city, it is so nice. It's so soft and orange, I mean, during the day, of course, but it's just always so nice. It's so pleasant to look at, and it's almost like an immediate source of stress relief for me just looking at the show. It really almost doesn't even matter what's happening in the episode or anything. I just really like how it looks. I don't get that same sense of calm from plenty of other animated shows that I love, or even animated movies that I love. Not a lot of stuff achieves that effect for me, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Before wrapping up, I just wanted to mention my favorite episode, and my favorite episode is, I'm gonna get the name. My favorite episode is Chapter 8, The 50-Year Night, and without telling you the whole premise of the episode and everything, it's very nice. It's actually kind of, it kind of feels like this show's version of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It sort of has that vibe, but it still has a really lovely emotional impact and weird self-sacrifice thing at the end that just felt great, especially because this show focuses so much on monsters and, you know, crazy supernatural elements, and in this one, it's really just about people who happen to live in this town, and we don't get to spend a lot of time with people in the town outside of our few main characters. There is something really comfortable and dramatic and still somehow fun about this particular storyline, and if you're worried about, like, you know, you don't necessarily want to commit to watching the whole season, I think it would be fine to watch that episode out of context, Chapter 8. Like, you'd probably be fine. It's not going to mess up anything for you. And like I said, this is a super light review. It's pretty short. I really don't have too many negatives to mention, just because I didn't feel it. Not only did I not notice, nothing really stood out to me as, that feels like it doesn't fit or it feels like it doesn't work, but also there was enough enjoyment happening for me that I didn't even feel the need to look that closely at it. And so it's nice. It definitely doesn't fall quite into the category of like kid-adult animation that I've talked about before, where it really does work 100% both for kids and adults. It's really not in that space. It does ultimately feel skewed skewed towards the younger audience, which it's meant for, but also, like, I do think it works better for that audience in general, and there aren't going to be a ton of things in here specifically for adults. Although there were just a couple of really great comedy moments that I was a little bit surprised by, how well they worked while still being completely squeaky clean. It's not like the thing where they are making a joke for the grown-ups in the room to chuckle at. Check it out, even if you haven't seen season 1 of Hilda. Like, it's really not that hard to catch up on, and just something so pleasant in a time where, you know what, I don't mind watching something pleasant one bit. In fact, I kind of really love it. Okay, I'm gonna cook now or something. I don't know. Let me know if you have ideas for what I should do with the rest of my night. Okay, bye.